Welcome to the Top 200 podcast with your host, Herschel Foran.
All right. What's up, everybody? It's Herschel Foran from High School Top 200. Welcome to the Monday Morning Meeting podcast. If you don't know me, my name is Herschel Foran. I run High School Top 200 and do all the stuff, editing, photos, uploading, all that kind of stuff. So that's all me. Jump on all my socials on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Even subscribe to my YouTube page, High School Top 200 as well. And also subscribe to the hstop200.com website. Subscription is $5 a month. And that's got all the rankings and everything else that you need to see there, and also all the articles that I write up for High School Top 200. If you're pretty new to this platform and this page, I just do this for the love of the players and for the talent that we have out there, and just giving them another platform to be noticed on, and to just help boys find more opportunities to grow their career if they want their career to be in rugby and in sports. And I'm just one of those kind of links and opportunities for them to get as far as they can. Congratulations to Hamilton Boys High School and Greg and his coaching staff. Just massive congratulations. And if you've been following First 15 Rugby this year, and if you've been following Hamilton Boys, or if you're a fan, or just casual fan of First 15 Rugby, I can guarantee you that Hamilton Boys were deflated after that Super 8 final, and so it is even more of an achievement that they picked themselves up and got to this point and carried on. And so congratulations to Greg Kirkman and his boys from Hamilton Boys High School. National Championships for 2024. Also got back the Moeska Cup, which is also one of those things that you need in your guys' cupboards and your guys' awards. Your awards cupboards at the end of the year, so your photo looks all cool. But they've got that back as well, and Hamilton Boys High School is now leading the national championship race. I think they got 6 now, whereas they were 5. I think it was 5 with Kelston Boys as well as Wesley, and now they've just jumped up to 6. And so congratulations to them. Such a winning program, and such a massive year for Greg Kirkman and his boys, and the whole coaching staff that they have that's running it this year, and just a massive congratulations to them. I thought we'd go through, because we had these games sort of back to back. I just thought I'll go through what I thought of every team, what I thought of how they played in both of their games. Because I've been real sick, I wasn't able to. I was actually going to do like a live while watching them. I was going to do a live, just jump on my live, and whoever wants to come on, just watch it together kind of thing. And but I've been sick for this whole week, and that's why I haven't been able to get out to as much games as I wanted to, because I missed the rugby by the beach. I missed under 15 nationals. I missed the Northern Regions one as well, which Liston took out, which was massive. Also in Mahurangi College won Rugby by the Bay. Congratulations to those two. Congratulations also to Tauranga Boys, who are the national under 15 champions. The national under 15 champions. Also St. John's College Hamilton, who won the Lindisfarne under 15s. Sacred Heart under 15s won the Hurricanes under 15s, and Timaru Boys High School, who won the I think it's the South Island one, I think it's called, but they haven't won that for years and years, and they beat Nelson in the finals for that under 51 down there. So congratulations to all of them. But I thought I would go through every single team and just talk about how they went. And the reason why is because knowing that you're in the top 4, knowing that you've only got pretty much 2 more games left. You've at least got 1 more game, but you know you're going to play 2, and you're already at the big stage. And as a player, I guess that you come up to us and you're thinking to yourself, 1 more win and we're in the finals. We're already the best in our region. We proved it by making it this far. We've already made this travel. We've already sort of prepared. We're already at that peak of our season where we're supposed to peak at, and we've pretty much got to win this game to get to the next one. So we've got at least 1 more game to prove ourselves, and 2 if we're lucky. For me, I was watching it with the perspective of I was part of that team kind of thing, and the perspective of how I would feel if I was part of that team in their situation. For example, right, Kelston boys pretty much losing, I think it was like the last 2 of their games or 2 of the last 3 of the games of the season, losing to St. Kennigan's, having another and then having a win, and then losing against Auckland Grammar, and then going out there and then winning the 1A final. Had some redemption with beating Westlake boys to become representatives of the Blues. And this is how most Auckland teams think, is that the real prize of the season is to win the 1A, and that's it. That's their prize. That's the pinnacle. And a lot of Auckland teams fall to this way of thinking and fall to this kind of this narrative that Auckland rugby is the best that you can find. Whereas I've also been pretty vocal as well in saying that they're not. Saying that they pretty much have a toss-up between them and the Super 8 every single year. And pretty much every single year they do really have to fight for who's the best. Because the Super 8 produce every single year, every single game is hard. They have the harder road in terms of travel when it comes between them and the Super 8 and sort of the 1A. So, even though the 1A have a lot of really good players and a lot of good teams in such a small area, it doesn't automatically give them the hardest route to the top 4. Now, I believe that when I was thinking about it, I thought that Kelston could win this. And the reason why I felt that Kelston could win this is because Kelston went down to Tauranga boys and put a number on Tauranga boys at their home in some wet weather, and they scored a bunch of points in wet weather. They showed that the team that I compared with to Nelson was Tauranga boys. And in my mind, I was thinking, I've got I've got Nelson as number 1, but I feel like Tauranga can take these guys. And when I saw Kelston take them and physically dominate them, ruck-wise, moving the ball, moving, sort of points of attack here and there with Kelston, I thought, man, I think they can do the same. I think they can do the same at the top 4. And then when they had their losses, I just thought, oh man, this shows that the ability for Kelston boys to keep that intensity up is pretty slim, and they became the team that I was thinking about as the team that we have to wait till kickoff to see what kind of attitude they're in and what kind of mind frame they're in at the beginning of this game. Now, every single game that I look at Kelston, I've seen Kelston's games this year. I've seen half of the games this year of Kelston, just through different, either attending the games or just through different sources of being able to get their film and footage. When I watch Kelston for Jarrell Vainga as well as Paula Luau. So I look at those two and I think, okay, how do these two set up? How do they play? Where do they play? Whether it's first five, second five, or whether it's second five center. And then where does Tyson move around to? Where does Kopa Namotu move around to? And then I kind of base it off that. Because Sam Clark and Sam Toko back and forth, they can sort of interchange, and you're going to get the similar type of player. And so, like, when I saw them against Nelson, and I thought, okay, pressure is going to be on Jarrell, and Nelson knew it too because of the fact that I talk about him a lot and the fact that I have put him in the rankings. They knew that he was there. Kelston also knew that Salmaki and also Harrison's on the other side too. So it's not like these things are like big secrets. It's the reason why I do it. But they knew that the Jarrell was going to be the target, and they knew that Polo was going to be the second one. And then they had the idea that Xavier's going to be in the front row. We're going to try and isolate him somehow and pull him out of the game. And they knew that Solo was a big deal as well. The one guy I didn't tell him about was Io Keith, who I have to admit I was really wrong about. And that guy is a top player and should have been ranked all year. And for some reason, I don't know why this was, I just didn't see it. And the reason why they stayed in this game against Nelson for so long, to me, was him. Io Keith did a lot of not just trucking the ball, but making some real important tackles, being in the right moment to make those clean outs of the ruck just for quick ball. His just ability to be right place, right time, slipping those tackles, making these breaks, sort of centering his run, that he would be able to at least get options. I thought he did the most work in that first game against Nelson College. Now, in saying that, you still had Solo back up, who was pretty good. Xavier had a pretty good game too in that game in terms of the forwards. I wish Desmond and Joseph had a bigger role to play in that game, but because Jarrell, to me, this is probably the worst game that I've seen him play, and it just wasn't his normal self. And I guess when you're the best player on your team, people know who you are, that's just going to happen. And like, Jarrell's such a good player that this is not going to be the last time he gets targeted like this, because the better and better he gets, everyone's just going to know who he is, and everyone's just going to target him and go, oh man, we can't let him run. Because the thing is with Jarrell is that he's got so much talent, he's got so much skills, that he can base his attack off so many things, whether it's going to be running or passing game or kicking game or just his own run game himself. Jarrell's just got too many things, and so this is not going to be a surprise to him or anyone else that gets him, is that whatever club he goes to next year, whatever code he chooses, whether it's going to be league or rugby, everyone's going to know who he is and everyone's going to target him. And Jarrell, if you don't know this, everyone's going to target you. You're just too good of a player to not. And you may feel like at times it's going to be unfair, like why do they target me? But you should take it as kind of a compliment. Take it as a compliment, then take it as a motivation to extend your skill set as a player. Now, Jarrell just didn't have the best game. Kelston as a whole didn't really have a good game. Polar had to actually go into a sort of forward role to secure themselves on offense and on defense to get something going. Bolo actually, to me, was a reason why they stuck around in that game because that first half they were just getting done over against Nelson, and then even though their fight back was there, I think the damage was already done within that first half. And Nelson had their problems too with just laying back and sitting back as well. That, they almost did get caught. The other thing is that when it came to the second game, Kelston played the way Kelston should. Really quick hands, real fluid movements, real flowy, sharp execution of what they wanted to do, forwards and backs. And they were out 17 points straight away. They just made it look so easy. And then even going into halftime, where I think that they were 24-10 or something like that at halftime against Feilding in that second game, you kind of just thought, oh yeah, this is the Kelston that we were looking for. It's pretty gutting that they weren't able to play this same way against Nelson College. And then it didn't take Feilding long at the start of that second half, or I think Rupeni was the first one to score that try, and then carried on, then got a second one not far after, and then the points just piled on so fast, and I felt like Kelston switched off at halftime. And this is kind of where my attitude of like Auckland rugby or 1A rugby, I'm not going to say Auckland rugby because 1B is not like this, but 1A rugby, where they look at everybody else and they go, who are these guys from Feilding? Why should we care about who these guys are? And that was the attitude that I felt like they had. And this is not a team thing. This is a players thing. Players have this attitude. And I feel like coaches keep trying to tell the boys from Auckland or whatever team you're in, just because we're going outside of Auckland doesn't mean these boys can't play. And we've got to be careful. And it's only since my website and my top 200 has started up and giving everyone a perspective of everybody else in the country can play, that it's slowly getting better, where respect has sort of been evened out around the country. If Kelston just kept that same mentality and energy that they played that first half with, and they didn't let Dane get back into the game, they didn't let Alani get back into the game, they didn't let Penny get back into this game, even Penny, Javier, if they didn't let these guys get back into the game for Feilding, I feel like they would have scored 40 points. But mentality and mental strength is part of the game. And to me, they just didn't handle it well in both games. In both games, it was just that little, the mental side of it just wasn't there for me with both of them while I was watching them. But I still feel like they got New Zealand prospects in that team anyway. No doubt that's how it is. Feilding kind of the same. Like Feilding have like this chip on their shoulder, as being, they've always had that with Palmy, and so people don't give them much respect because everyone just looks at Palmy boys and they go, oh, where you guys from? Because everyone says they say Feilding, but it's like, oh, where's that close to you? And it's always Palmy. So they always looked at it at that kind of, in that way. But I think that Feilding in both games, like the Hamilton boys game, again, so much they got behind by so much in that first half. Fought back a little bit. They all just looked really bland. They looked really uninterested, or like reality hit them in the face pretty much after that first try to Hamilton boys, and then they let 2 more run in, like things like that. And then I was thinking to myself, man, this doesn't look like the Feilding side that I'm used to watching, because I've pretty much watched every single one of Feilding's games this year. And this was not the team that I was looking at. This was not the team that I was used to seeing. You know, Dane wasn't running the same. Alani was really off in that Hamilton boys game, and probably one of his worst games that I've seen him, where I didn't really even notice. Jack Fuller did really great. Joseph Nikolai was really good. Rupini as well was really good. Kotahi I thought stood up, but after being so far behind in that first half, it just took so long for them to pick themselves up again in that second half. And the worst thing is that Hamilton boys, same like Kelston boys, went to sleep after that first half. They didn't really have any respect for Feilding until they had to fight for that to stay in the lead. And it really was, I want to go and have a look at how much actual minutes it was in that second half, the beginning part of the second half. It felt like it was like 25 minutes of just constant attacking, 10-meter line, you know, up against Hamilton boys, up against their line for like 20 minutes straight. And Feilding was throwing everything at it. And even when it got turned over, pushed back down, and Hamilton still scored, Feilding was still coming for them, which I kind of liked, but they just left it too late. They left it in a way that, like, their bad starts got them into that position. And they almost had to build confidence throughout the game for them to realize, we can hang with this Hamilton boys team, and we can hang with this Kelston boys high team. I am actually saying that, and I actually feel that Hamilton boys shouldn't have won that game against Feilding. I don't think Hamilton boys was the better team against Feilding. They scored the most points, but if you watch the game, they weren't the better team. And like, in saying that, like, Hamilton don't care, because they're looking at it like, wow, we still won, we're still national champions. Feilding's the one that's going to look at it and be like, I think Hirsch was bloody right, man. Like, why did we let them have those points, with that many points, so early on? 1 try is enough, you know, like, 1 try you kind of see, like, you got 2 tries, you're like, oh, okay. But then you go to like 3 tries and a penalty, 3 tries, and, you know, that kind of stuff. Only for you to look at the scoreboard and go, okay, we've got to make up 17 points in the second half. And this is kind of where the leadership side comes into it, is that Alani, who's the captain and is a big time New Zealand prospect, who's still only young, he's still only turned 17 this year. But him, Dane and Dan Maisuri, who was the winger, big tall Fijian guy, those guys needed to have that conversation and pull everybody's heads in. Now, whether they did it or not is like another thing. Maybe you did it, maybe you just weren't as convincing, and you had to have that halftime. But maybe this is a message to all of you guys that are coming back next year, who are year 12s or young year 13s, who are back again next year, is to then look at yourselves and maybe rewatch these games, and then recognize those moments of, like, watch the game and go, okay, this is the point where we need to say something, and recognize when we're in a team next year, if we get into a situation like this, to look at it and be like, this is when we need to say it. We can't say it at this point, it's too late. We've conceded too many points at this point. Feilding, to me, should have been in that finals. It should have been Nelson College and Feilding, by the way that they played. I felt that Feilding was a better team. Hamilton boys were Hamilton boys for about 17 minutes or so. And that's kind of what it felt like, you know. It's kind of what it felt like. Feilding, like even the way that Kotahi was playing from halfback, getting that ball out to Tyrese, even Tyrese directing it around. Even Nixon Foreman, even when he had the ball and had that opportunity as well, I felt like they were in positions where they could have made differences, but they just didn't. You know, and I kind of like, I need to maybe watch it a few more times, or just watch little moments of these things and figure out where those things went wrong, because I thought Kotahi in that first half did what he could. And maybe he should have used a bit more of Zach. Maybe he should have used a bit more of like Marshall. Maybe Marshall should have linked up a bit better with, you know, Rupini, or, you know, things like that. Like going through all those kind of questions and situations, but then Feilding just had those shots. Feilding had these opportunities. Dane looked off for a little bit in those first halves. And I'm saying first halves because I'm talking about the Hamilton and the Kelston put together. And I am confident in saying that Dane Johnson should be a New Zealand secondary school player. I'm not a selector. I know that's kind of stuff. That's for whoever selectors are this year. And I personally feel like if they go through all this guy's games, he is a New Zealand secondary school prop, and that's the kind of player that you want. He also needs to learn, I guess, that you have to look at your team and go, we belong here and we belong with these guys. And I think these guys figured that out too late in the games that, oh shoot man, we can handle this Kelston team. And they were able to pull it off. But if they figured that out early against Hamilton boys, we'd be having a different discussion about who the national championship team is. And it could have been someone like Feilding High School. A co-ed high school that's in the middle of, you know, Manawatu, nowhere, and they've got, you know, just a farm community that backs their team 100%. And this is like a message to all players around the country. If you want a program where you can learn to play rugby, learn to be hardworking, and get all your school credits and get all these opportunities education-wise, and have that all mixed into one, and it's like affordable, Feilding High School is where you want to go. And I'm talking to you Aucklanders. There's a difference between, like, if I would tell the first option I would probably go to is Feilding. If some Aucklander goes, hey, I want to get my son out of here, I want to play some good rugby, also get, you know, a really good education, things like that, and, you know, work ethic, be a man, all that kind of stuff, I would say Feilding first, Hastings second, Rotorua third. That's what I would say. Unless you're Māori and they'll be like, oh, I'll go to Rotorua. Feilding to me is one of the best places you could go to send your boy, that your boy will be in a safe place, in a safe environment, in a great community, a massive rugby following, and just boys that want to work hard and be good. Feilding would be the place 100%. These boys needed to figure that out earlier in these games, that they belonged with everybody else at the top. And this is just a mentality that they just need to change, because they've always gone the co-ed route. They've always been the co-ed route. They've had national championship team caliber teams, but they've always gone the co-ed route because I don't know what it is. I have a feeling it's had to do with Palmy boys and whatever. They don't want to get stuck behind them, or, you know, seen, you know, as lower than them. But I think that this is a good indication for this school that they belong in those rankings and in those realms and in those multi-universes with everybody else in the top schools in New Zealand. This is not, to me, this is not one of those John McGlashan, you know, flash in the pan, we have a really good team this time. It's like, Feilding have always had good teams every single year. I actually feel sorry for some of the other schools that the other teams from past years that I felt were like national quality teams, but they just went the other route and stayed on the co-ed route. You know, like I feel sorry for those teams. These boys belong at the top. This team definitely belongs. Like, people would always tell me, like, why do you rate Feilding so high? Why are they 7th in the country? Why are they 9th in the country? Why are they 4th in the country? You know, things like that. It's like, mate, you guys have to watch how good these boys are. And they are. I don't know if Alani Whakawā's going to come back next year. Because he's young, like he can come back. But if he doesn't make New Zealand secondary schools this year, he's definitely going to make it next year. And it was like actually cool to see him go up against Xavier Leota from Kelston Boys, because Xavier's the other one that in the country that I think is a New Zealand secondary school hooker, along with JJ Yosefo from Hastings Boys is the other guy that I think is New Zealand secondary school hooker. I mean, what's his name? Ty could probably make a case for himself from Tauranga Boys. But having Alani Whakawā play against Xavier Leota, and both of them actually being able to look at each other and go, oh, okay, this is who Herschel's talking about. Yeah. Now, honestly and openly rank yourself against each other and go, yeah, I think this guy's actually the goods as well. Like, I like competing against him. I felt he was a harder test for me as a hooker. Things like that. It's kind of what you're supposed to do. And like, my number one team in the country, Nelson, right? Nelson is pretty much the Patriots that went all the way to the Super Bowl and then lost to the Giants. And they were in the perfect season, they were in the perfect situation, they had a full trophy cabinet, and this is kind of just what happens. It really is. This is kind of just the life, this is kind of just the things that just happen. Hard, yeah, it's hard probably to get through, you know, it's probably hard to explain or to justify why things didn't happen. But it's just like one of those things, you know, like you don't have the control over that. Like, you can just control what you can control. You're a team for a reason, because you all want to be on the same page and you all want to be doing exactly what you know that you should be doing as a team and that you've practiced as a team. But it takes a few guys just to slip, you know, it takes a few guys to lose concentration, it takes a few guys to like not do this and some do something else, and you know, all those things come into it. And like, I think being ranked number one in the country, as I stand by my rankings, but you still have to play the games. That's kind of how it is. I say it all the time. It's like, my rankings are just what's happened, not what's going to happen. My rankings are based on what's happened, not what's going to happen. Nelson was supposed to go in there, and they were supposed to play in the national finals, and they were supposed to come out as national championships, just the same way that Hamilton boys were supposed to make this top four, and then were supposed to win the national championship. All four of these teams came in with that same attitude. Hamilton boys just pushed it to the extra extent and did it. Now, that first game, they showed what a perfect team Nelson College is, and this is why I hate the fact that we don't have everybody's games playing, that we don't have access to watch everybody's games, because in all honesty, the country, rugby fans, and I'm not just talking about first team rugby, I'm talking about rugby fans. The reason why we don't have a lot of first team fans is because it's not accessible. Even with Sky, it wasn't accessible. You weren't able to watch it with, like, YouTube's great, like what Fakata Modi has done, what Bailey's and who was it, Caltex, and what's the farming one, what they've done, and being able to put it on YouTube is that guys are going to be able to watch this stuff after. Not everyone has Sky, not everyone has access to Sky, not everyone has access to the time slots that they're in, things like that. You know, it's just not always that accessible. What we missed out on as a fan base of rugby alone, and even those that watch from around the world, because I get messages all the time, is that we missed out on a perfect team like Nelson College this whole season, from game to game, and I pretty much saw every single game that they played this season. Dominated every aspect of the game. They dominated every single way of how you should run as a team, how forward pack should go from one phase to the next, how transition of run game to pods to, even on turnovers, going from offense to defense straight away, then back to offense, things like that. We missed what Nelson College did because we don't have access to watching this kind of rugby. And if you watch them like I watched them all year, Nelson College was just one of the most perfect teams I'd seen in a long time. Like all over the field. And I'm not just talking about the fact that they have Kobe Brownlee and, Salmaki and Taina and, Oliver and Harrison, like those kind of guys, Samuel up front, even Keelan at the back, having a midfield like you did with Jimmy and Whanua. I'm not just talking about those guys, I'm talking just about the team as a whole coming off the bench. And they got to give a shout out as well to, what's his name as well, that American fella, Americans always Americans are Americans, my wife's American. Yeah, even I get annoyed at them. Like Oliver Kirk is his name. They call him Bulldog. If he stayed and he played a national championship, he'd be the dude like running past the camera trying to bark and doing all that American stuff. But they owe him a massive shout out for what he did for that team as well up front. And Tafio was good. I think he was solid player too. But what's his name? He started all year, he started every single game this year before he had to go back, and that's all based off visa stuff. That's all student visa stuff. That's got nothing to do with, whatever. But him being able to be in those, Nelson to be in that position where they'll be able to be dominant as a forward pack, be able to move the ball like they wanted to, they were able to set up the pods and the attacking options the way that they wanted to, where Salmaki was able to get a lot of space. Taino was there for that second attack. Then Jimmy and Whanua out wide, who were being able to find those little gaps, and so that both Mikey and Michael on the wings, that they were able to get the opportunity to make those breaks. And we saw it as well, where they made breaks where they were making 50-meter breaks. Just off ball play, just off speed of hand, being able to be in the right place at the right times, things that they practice. They're in the right place at the right time because they practice that stuff. They know where they're supposed to be. They played that first perfect half against Kelston boys and then trailed off at the end, and even though they didn't look like they were going to lose against Kelston boys, you could see that they had slipped off a bit. And that was kind of something that worried me a little bit too. I'd seen that in other games before. St. Andrews was another one where Nelson struggled a little bit. Up at quad against Christ College, they had a little bit of slippage in time where there was a good 13 to 15 minutes where they let little things slide with Christ that led to tries. Situations like that. Even in the finals against Christchurch boys, there were times where they had these massive, they had these massive slots where they were just perfectly running everything. Everything was running smooth, and then they all kind of just turned off. Hamilton boys was the same. In the finals, it's the same way that they played that way too, was they had these, right after half time, they had 3 opportunities within the first 7 minutes of the second half where they should have scored try, and then it ended up being a turnover, and then Hamilton scoring on the other side, when finishing it off in the corner, which they should have, finishing it right near the left hand side of the goal post as well, just those little things. And one thing that I didn't like was that Tainer, and I don't know if Tainer was injured or not, but I feel like he went off too early. I feel like it was too early within that half that he went off. And this is just opinion based. This is not like if he had stayed on, he would have won. I'm saying that it would have been better for him to stay on and continue to lend his influence into what they are used to playing as a team. And I wish that he was there, because even Jack tried to play. I thought Jack played really good. Samuel played really good too. Tom Perkins was great as ever. He went missing for a little bit. Him and Connor, I feel like a pretty good, they're really solid pairing. Keelan Grafton is another one that I thought, and both of the games he kind of went, like he just wasn't having the same effect that we're used to seeing him make. Like he used to make, like game after game, he makes these 20-30 meter breaks just outside edge, curling around like different players, picking up, little stray passes here and there, and then picking up these weak defenders. He just break around them. He just wasn't doing it in these last two games. And he's like had a massive season too. It just didn't work in these last two games. I'm not too sure why. But there was like a point in the Kelston game where it was closer to the end of the game. I was saying, far out, he hasn't really made these sharp breaks like I thought he would. And because when you don't have the wind, actually every single team did not use that wind the way that I guess every other rugby fan would use the wind. And it was almost like the team that was just running their game, just running game all the time, who was going into the wind, it seemed like they were the ones with the upper hand, like they had the advantage. It was so weird, it was real bad. And I actually thought that Harry would do a lot better with being able to control that wind and control that that pace of the game to where he'll be able to use all that stuff. It just didn't work that way, it didn't work the way that I thought that they were going to do it. And so I thought, okay, that's fine. And there was just a point where they just couldn't come back, and you could see them fighting for it. Nelson in that second half, and they were still in the game maybe until the last 12 minutes, and you could just kind of see it deflating, just falling to bits in front of your eyes kind of thing. And every mistake felt like it was like the end of the world kind of thing, just the demeanor of the boys. Just there was just that no pick me up guy that was hyped enough to hype everyone else and make them believe kind of thing. I mean, even when you look at Hamilton boys, Hamilton boys did not play a good game against Feilding. After those first 15 minutes, or after the first 12 to 15 minutes, and they scored those 3 tries, and I was kind of up. I was thinking, man, these dudes just really, really went to sleep. They really, really went to sleep. And to me, the best player on that team, the best player to me in the 2 games to me would probably be Hidaka. Hidaka to me was probably the most consistent player. I think if there was like an MVP of the the tournament thing, Hidaka would be the one I'd give it to. Like Hidaka to me, his defense was just so solid. His run game, the way he backed it up. I mean, Ollie Gurn scored some mean tries, but to me they weren't there without Hidaka. Hidaka Waitai Hainga was to me the base of why these guys were able to attack like that. And then when it came to defense, he was just doing these one-on-one tackles. He was making up for everything. So to me, I thought a lot of that should have went to him. I thought another important guy in this team too was Alex Arnold. I'm actually convinced a lot more now that this team, especially in that forward pack, doesn't go without him. I thought that he offered a lot more to this team when he was on the field. And you kind of saw it when he wasn't there with in that Tauranga Super 8 finals game. Jack Miller coming off the bench too, I thought was really weird, but there was like this hunger to Hamilton boys to Jack when he came on in the second half, and just I think he got 2 turnovers almost straight away when he got on the field, something like that. But him, Liam Van der Hayden was another one I thought played really well. Stefan Newman played really good too. Tom had his day. Mitch Swan, I thought, I wasn't really impressed with him after that first game, and I think a big discussion for New Zealand secondary schools is going to be, we know that Charlie Stinton is number 1 at halfback right now from Tauranga boys, and Mitch would usually be my second guy to go with. Mitch Swan would be that second guy to go with. I kind of think it's now Ollie Gibbons. I think he might have played his way into that. And even though Mitch had like a really good finals too, so did Oliver. So that's going to be an interesting discussion for, I guess, whoever the selectors are. But both of these guys played really, really good. I think Hamilton was really lucky that they opened up their fielding game with like these tries pretty much straight away. Their defense, they really leaned on their defense maybe a little bit too much, where I thought, man, are they smashing themselves too much from this, with this defense? And if they win this game against Feilding, is it really going to pay? Is it going to take their toll on them once they get into that final game? And the way Hamilton, I guess, even in the finals, continued to tackle, they had these mauls that were really, really organized, and that really saved them in some of these situations to not only just like stop momentum, but it also slowed down the game a bit. It also changed the hand of pace from Nelson, setting that pace for the game, to them doing these mauls where they drove it, and then sort of just like cut them down, cut their momentum with it. And then you had like Jake Rabbits and that Rabbits doing these runs off the back of it. Dallas Rata Makini, I thought, who I do like him. I just haven't really been. I actually think he's out of position, to be honest. I think if I had him on my team, I'd probably put him at like either second 5 or fullback. But these 2 games in a row, I thought were his best games of the season in a row. Was the Feilding game as well as the Nelson game, and even Jackson, by the way, I thought was a bit of a game changer to me too. Because I thought that I think they look at him as just like a kicker, but I think he actually proved that he can do a lot more other stuff. I thought his combinations went pretty well with him and Ross Anderson. Even Maxwell Cutter was the other one or two that I was like, man, these guys are playing pretty good for how young they are, especially Maxwell, who's only year 11. I thought, that's pretty massive. And like I said, I don't even think Hamilton boys should have won that first game against Feilding. They were just so lucky that they got out of it. But they found a way. I think the leadership, found the way. And even when I was talking to my dad about it, and I was going, I think Nelson's got this one. And he goes, well, when you're champions, you just know that you guys are champions. Nelson don't know that they're champions. They've just never experienced it before, But when you have a 5-time champion like Hamilton boys, you just kind of know that that's who you are. And I was thinking, okay, I'll see what happens with that. And, Hamilton boys just found what their strengths were, played to their strengths, never played out of character. Again, I think Hidaka Waitahanga was the main guy for this, and he won't. If he was eligible to be picked for New Zealand Secondary Schools, I'd pick him for New Zealand Secondary Schools. But I mean, he's a Warriors player, so it's not like he's going to change. I think he's got his Warriors contract, so he'll probably just go back there. But if New Zealand Secondary Schools was able to pick him, I would pick him. I would put him in my New Zealand Secondary Schools. I think this is also like a big boost for the program, that knowing that even though Nigel's gone, Greg Kirkham is still there, and he's the perfect fit for a head coach, I think. And I don't know whether he was a bit insecure about it now, because I think in all these years, it's got to be some years that you catch feelings. He's human too. That Nigel's the one that gets all the credit, and people talk about Nigel. Even myself, I talk about Nigel a lot. Even though when I say Nigel, I mean both of them. It doesn't mean that I just mean just one of them. I mean both of them. But Nigel's name is always the first one to be brought up. Like, I don't know if he had feelings, about this over the years, but this is like also another indication for him that, he deserves the same accolades. He deserves to be at least brought into that same conversation. It's like, he was here with them the whole time. It's kind of like, having like a Bill Belichick and, like a Tom Brady. It's just like, they won all their titles together. Brady moved away and he won. Nigel moved away and Greg still won. And it's like such a proud thing for this program and the school to have a rugby program like that. And let me be honest here, like this, being from Hamilton and being like a rival of Hamilton boys, and I still hate the uniform to this day. Like, I still hate seeing that these guys, I still hate seeing the uniform, and I still have this thing about them as well. It's just like, man, I can't stand you fellas. But they're Hamilton boys for a reason. This school's only really productive and they're really this confident because the rugby program made them that confident. They weren't like this early on. Hamilton boys were always a good school, but they weren't like, go look back in the history books, they weren't like national championship winning guys until Nigel got there. They didn't have heaps of New Zealand secondary schools, New Zealand secondary school players every single year. Go look in the books. Like, it wasn't until Nigel got there and got his, got the program running, that they started churning out all these New Zealand secondary school players, started winning these national championships, and then there was this want to be there. There was this need to be there in the Waikato area. It wasn't just Hamilton, it was the Waikato area. All the boys from outside schools, from like Te Kuiti and Otrahanga and Te Amuru and Cambridge, guys from like Tokoroa and Taumaranui, all these fellas were coming into Hamilton, and guys from Tauranga were coming over to Hamilton and go, we need to be a part of the school. They weren't coming here for academics. Like the maths program here and the algebra program didn't go, I want to go there for the algebra program. No, all these opportunities based off the fact that the rugby school set this standard of being the best, and to me it trickled down to everything else. It started with sports and then it trickled down, and Susan Hassel to me was the one that championed that, and I feel like she knew that if our rugby team is great and our rugby team is leading it, every other auxiliary here is going to work out. Every auxiliary is going to be able to look at their rugby program and go, we are winners and we can be winners like them. That's why to me the cricket works out well. That's why to me the soccer, the rowing, all that kind of stuff comes from just the setting of this attitude and the setting of this standard that rugby has made for the school. And 100% I was just like, I believe that if it wasn't for them, and if this like program doesn't work out, trust me, the feeling in this, if Hamilton boys have this bad run of 3-4 years, 5 years, things like that, I guarantee people are going to stop wanting to go there from Hamilton. They're all going to go to St. John's. I mean, St. John's will love that, but they're all going to want to go to St. John's. They're all going to want to go to, St. Peter's and St. Paul's, or go back to their smaller schools and stuff like that. The reason why these Hamilton boys is this successful is because of the rugby. You could say the same thing with Rotorua boys and Hastings boys. Hastings boys came from freaking nowhere. You should have seen when I started high school top 200, and Hastings boys had like 4 formers, like year 10s on their team, year 11s on their team, because they just started up this rugby program. And it took them a few years. Now people want to go to Hastings boys. Now if they stop this program and if they, don't start focusing on that, like boys go to school and get their grades because they want to be able to play on the Saturday. Like, you can't choose what a kid's motivation is. But there's a way of championing it through that they're able to do both. Now, if rugby is the way, then hey, rugby is the way. You can't just force it. You're here for education. It's like, yeah, well, the kid's not going to be here if you don't, have rugby as a priority in their lives too, because you can't choose what their priorities are. You might as well be in there to sort of, champion it along too. Don't try and change them for it. Like, most of these schools, they have really good programs. I'm not even just talking about rugby. Basketball's, like my school was like basketball. People came to church college for basketball. And we won national championships in both boys and girls. Never going to be beat. Have a look at the records. Church college, never going to be beat. But I mean, they knew they couldn't play unless they did their work. They knew they couldn't play unless their grades were up to, if they're going to school and things like that. If they didn't go to school, they got cut. And there was easily just next guy in there. Easily. Same thing with Hamilton boys. If you get cut from the team, easily they got someone in the second 15 that will jump up in there. Sometimes they have people from the under 15s, they'll jump up in there. The Hamilton boys just adding just that another national championship, another banner to that school, to that name, and to the program that they have is just massive. And even though they've handed on the torch from Nigel to Greg, I think it's in great hands still. It's in great hands still, and they're still going to continue to be the Hamilton boys that we're all kind of used to. I am still going to carry on with this because we still got rep games going on. We still got 7s coming up, so I'll still be doing my the Monday morning meeting. There'll probably be about other different things, not just games that up every week, but I'll make about other things. Send me all your rep game schedules so I can come out and start traveling to some of these rep games. I really want to go to the under 16s Hurricanes, which is one of the ones that I really want to move towards, because I've only been once before, but I want to make sure I want to go again. Also, we got the Chiefs one as well, that hopefully they're not on the same weekend, so I can go to both, but I want to try and catch a lot under 16s, because a lot of under 16s coming back. They're all going to be the boys that come back next week or next year, and some of those under 18s as well are going to be back. So if you're under 18s and you're year 12 and you made the under 18s reps for your area, message me, let me know that you're under, you're year 12 and you're under 18s, so that I can continue to watch you all the way through. And that's if I don't have you down or anything like that. Anyways, this is Herschel for Monday morning meeting. Love you all. Later, ball.